The fifth idea that we want to construct in faith learning integration, as well as our concern for Christian or biblical worldview integration, is our methodology in our curricula. So one of the ways that I would communicate this, and I've been using this schematic for years, is to help students to understand that all truth is God's truth, but that sometimes people will take a piece of truth to make it the whole truth. So notice what happens in the slide. The red dot is one piece of truth. Call it human or natural or the idea of authority. What ends up happening sometimes with people is that they will take one idea and make it the whole truth. So human becomes humanism, natural becomes naturalism, authority becomes authoritarianism. This, of course, shows the end result of what any kind of viewpoint might bring to us. That's a helpful way for our students to understand, how do we think differently as Christians? Another way that we might get after this is simply comparing and contrasting what somebody else believes. So if we have a chance universe versus a designed universe, for instance, we see very distinctive points of view. We see that matter is eternal versus God is eternal, or that reality is based in the supernatural versus the natural world. All of these concerns are really important, and you can go down the list and see the contrast in the different points of view. This might be a good way to help students to understand how to think Christianly in their classrooms. This is a picture that I took in an airport. It tells us that science creates hope. This, of course, is not true from a biblical point of view, because science doesn't do that. Science doesn't create hope. Science isn't in the idea or concern about hope. That's a theologian's vantage point from our concern within Scripture's point of view. Science simply identifies what's going on in the natural world around us. It doesn't create hope. It doesn't create truth. It doesn't even give us ethics. So for us, we have to notice misrepresentations in our teaching of other points of view. Sometimes we want to flip the script. There might be two parts to an idea. So for instance, one of my students wanted to write on global warming, climate change. And then, of course, I asked the question, when this particular individual was giving the final product, what are we not hearing? So you presented one point of view without presenting another point of view. You have to ask yourself the question, what are you not hearing? So when we concern ourselves from a Christian point of view, with reality, with ethics, with purpose, we might want to consider those ideas from a Christian vantage point in our classes. Then there's the concern of observation, and this is really kind of simple out of the book of Genesis, chapters 1 and verse 1 through chapter 2 and verse 3, simply observing the wisdom that God has established in His world. And you can take a look at this slide and consider some of the words. It would take a long time to unpack some of them in the scriptural account, but nonetheless, we see things like beauty and function and design and appreciation all the way through Genesis chapter 1. Those kinds of ideas would be helpful as we teach our students.